Howdy ho, how's everyone doing? This is Knowledge or Nonsense. You see it, you see it.
You see
Yes.
it.
How are you, Perkins?
Hey, I'm on the road on the move, but I definitely couldn't miss this opportunity to have this discussion today. So um, fired up. It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I know you're working hard down there in Florida. I'm excited.
Fired up.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks down there. Then I'll see you again a couple of weeks later. And then I'll see you again a couple of weeks later. I have 3 Florida trips over the next 6 weeks. But
yeah, we gonna make that happen.
yes, we're gonna keep it happening. Hey, listen, tonight we're talking with a lady. Her name is Naseema McElroy. Dynamic. She's an RN, but more importantly, she is somebody who really teaches about financial wealth and health and how to advocate for yourself. Like she just kind of removes the shame or whatever stigma you may have thought was associated with, and just kind of helps people be free from tiptoeing around about things that have to do with you. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to spend some time with her today. We have some questions for her. Yeah, that's all I got, Dwayne. I'm ready to bring her in.
It's amazing. Let's bring our guests in, bring Miss Naseema in, and I just get so encouraged, especially when I hear nurses or these amazing people who took this journey and are able to transition to other platforms to help people. You know, these are natural born helpers, if you are servants of the people. So please bring in our guests.
Yes, I'm gonna bring her right in. Not even gonna play the intro music again. We're bringing it in.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Man,
Good.
we're good.
You got
We're
you got
better
it
for
both
seeing you.
ear to ear.
Yes.
So Naseema,
Good to see you.
Dwayne's having some difficulties. As he's fixing that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now you're in healthcare, but you started working with people to help. Like, man, what made you just want to do it? What made you just be like,
Why?
Like my people? What?
Right.
Tell us about it.
So, yes, I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 13 years. And I've always been like successful. I went to nursing school after I already had after I had a master's degree. So it's my second master's degree. But I always knew how to make money. And when I started my journey, was actually making over $200,000 a year, but was hella broke, as we say in the Bay. And so I realized that making money didn't equate to having wealth. And I just kind of set out on a journey to figure out what that looked like and documented just my lessons along the way, hence why I started the platform Financially Intentional. And some things I've been able to accomplish on this journey is I paid off just under $1 million in debt in under 3 years and have been able to grow my net worth to almost $1 million since then, since 2017. And just being able to empower so many people and just like change the landscape of personal finance, because it's usually typically male, stale, and pale. And there's been intentional barriers put up in place so that it makes wealth building overcomplicated. So you think that you need certain people to help you build wealth when you really don't. It's really just a basic understanding of money. But also there have been systemic barriers. We have access to a lot of things that generations before us did not have access to. Even just in the last couple of years, a lot of things have opened up and we've been able to get more affordable investment options and all these kind of things. But you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people just don't know. And so it's not like my target audience is super impoverished. Most of my target audience, make well over 6 figures, but they were never taught about money because their parents weren't taught about money, or, just whatever. We were told to go to school, get a good job, and then, get your pension, your retirement, and then that's it. But it's a lot more to wealth building. And so just here to normalize that, break it down in a way that we can understand, most people can understand, and encourage other people to build wealth, because I really feel like wealth is our birthright.
Wow, you said so much there, Naseema. And as you was talking, I know quite a number of my peers who are far beyond 6 figures, but they're broke. So they look great on paper, right? They look fantastic on paper, but they're broke. Why?
Well, you know what? I started there too, right? Because when I started on my journey, I had a brand new house, 5 bedroom, 5.5 bath house in California, luxury car, you know, the income, but I just did not know what to do with it because you don't know what you don't know. It's really financial ignorance. And we always think that once we make a certain amount of money, we'll figure it out. Or once we do X, Y, and Z, we'll figure it out. Or we just have to have the right people. We think we have to get that man that's gonna figure it out. That's gonna help us figure it out. But it's really just about like starting from where you're at and understanding where you want to go, and then doing intentional actions, small intentional actions every day to get there. And that's why my platform is called Financially Intentional, because it's not just about like figuring it all out at once and then having the things like okay, like all of a sudden you're wealthy. It's about those things that you do daily, that are going to set you on the path to build wealth. So it's called the aggregation of marginal gains, right? And so most people, especially in the Black communities, we have like this lottery mentality. Like we got to win a lawsuit or we got to do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll be rich, right? It's not like that. It's really like that millionaire next door, like investing a little bit and starting to invest more and more as you can. And then also just like learning the basics of personal finance. Like it's not about how much you make, it's about how you spend what you make.
So as you advocate for financial literacy, you advocate for people us changing the landscape of certain things. Now I'm going to circle back to the medical too, because you also advocate for individuals within healthcare. And there was a time we did a show about 18 months ago just talking about isms in healthcare, different isms, and there are very real isms. Everything isn't an ism, but there are some very real isms and some systemic beliefs. And guys, just to be clear, I follow Naseema on Financially Intentional. Like I follow her. Like there's some real like nuggets left and right, day in and day out. So I do follow her. But I remember you speaking and how you were speaking as a nurse, and you're like, hey, this isn't the case that people, marginalized people, well, sometimes so black folks basically, like some people were being misunderstood as them being difficult or problematic when they really were just in pain. And because of that ism, now it's not even personal to the nurse or to whoever, but because of the isms and those false beliefs that like we have a higher tolerance for pain. No, it hurts. If it hurt you, it hurt me. What are you talking about? I can take a punch. What? No, those things hurt. So do you feel like, how did you get the confidence or the wherewithal, you know what I'm saying? Like to speak up and not be afraid of being blacklisted, for lack of a better word?
Well, I'm gonna just tell you this. I ain't never scared. I'm a girl from West Oakland, and at the end of the day, that's what I'll be. Okay. So that's number one. Like my dad was a Panther, you know what I'm saying? So he taught me to question a lot of things, and to use my voice. Um, Sometimes he don't like it because I argue with him. But
I love it.
but what also set me on a path to be able to advocate and to speak up, because those isms are real, is the fact that like it just coincided with like when I had paid off all my debt.
Mhm.
That's when I started noticing all of these things. And so I was in a position like, if y'all not messing with me, I'm in a position to walk away, right? And I think that that's like the responsibility for everybody, especially nurses, is to be financially independent, because you will be in a compromising position where you know something is wrong, but you're
Wow.
afraid to speak up because you're scared to lose your job, right? So there's no secret that in America, we have a Black morbidity and mortality crisis. We have a systemic racism in healthcare that has dated back to slavery. I mean, we were experimenting on, still, very recently have been experimenting on. And, we have a strong distrust for the medical system, but also, I mean, there's things that are still taught in medical school that is totally not scientific based, but based in racism. And so racism is ingrained in our system. And I'll give you an example. Like in a suturing class, they'll teach you to use a different suture because black skin is supposed to be thicker. Correct. That's incorrect. That is totally false. But they teach you that. They do teach that black people have a higher pain tolerance. But what it actually is that oftentimes black people just aren't listened to, are misunderstood. And when we do raise our voice, or even just like go against what they're saying and do a hard stop, like, listen, I need you to listen to me, then we're labeled as hostile, non-cooperative. And these are words that are put in the charts that follow us, right?
Wow.
So
in our medical records.
In our medical records, non-compliant. And so what happens is the nurse is going to look at your chart before she goes in the room, or the doctor is going to look at your chart before they go in the room, and they're going to say, oh, I'm already going to have an issue with this patient. Let me just get in and out and, do what I need to do and then just leave. Or they're going to take that information and say, well, maybe there's something else wrong with this person, and I gave an example of, just like, because like then we get this like general label of like being difficult, right? I gave the example of a nurse I was getting a report from putting in a psych consult for a patient because she went into the room and the patient was hitting herself on the head, is what she said, right? And, I'm like telling her, like, yeah, she's hitting herself on the head. I said, I'm getting the report sight unseen, right? Is she Black? And that's for me.
No. You go.
Okay.
So you're
I'm like, is she Black? And then they're like, she was like, yeah, how did you know? I was like, that's the way Black people scratch their scalp, whatever. I do it because I don't want to mess up my hair, whatever. And she was just like, oh, but she didn't have that conversation because this is the place we didn't have a lot of Black patients. And if we did, they were always stigmatized as like drug users or, hostile and all this kind of stuff. So she was scared to even have a conversation with this patient because, she was a difficult patient without even having any conversation, right?
And it wasn't difficulty at all. It was just
all you had to do was ask, like, oh my God, like, what's going on? Did you need something for your scalp? Like, what's going on? Like, is your head hurting? Do I need to give you pain medicine? You just had a baby. Like, is there some way I can help you? Just like basic nursing assessment, right? Or just like follow up, just like questions.
Yes.
So, but what happens in that scenario, because this is a mom baby unit, it's like just had her baby, is that, number one, she put in a psych consult. If the psychiatrist or whoever was in the psych department, that the psych MP, whatever clinician was available, saw her and didn't have any sense, just like her, she could have had a psychiatric diagnosis, right?
Oh my God!
But now this person is having a psychiatric diagnosis and they got this little baby, and they're like, well, maybe this baby isn't safe with this person, so let's call CPS. They call CPS. Crazy. This lady can have her baby taken away, right? And so, like, it's a lot of stuff that goes into play where, some person does something that's unassuming. And to this nurse, she's thinking, okay, I solved the problem because I saw she was hitting herself on the head. I'm going to solve this problem, or I'm going to do something about it by putting in a psych consult, and I'll let psych follow up on it, when it wasn't even necessary because you're not even doing your job. But that rooted back into, all these things because you're just not understanding Black culture. But then you're afraid because of racism to talk to this person, right? Because they're automatically labeled as hostile and uncooperative and all this stuff without you even having any experience dealing with that person.
Okay. Let me just tell you 3 things that just hit me. I'm going to do a quick commercial. We're going to come back. As it relates to the nurses, like without the financial freedom, it's almost like you are almost held hostage. So your voice, you have to choose between, do I speak for what I believe and what's right for patient safety, Or do I feed my children? You know, like, hey, such and such. And then for that woman whose head may have just been itching, come on, whose head may have just been itching. Now she has a history of she has a psychiatric history. She got a psychiatric history because somebody was afraid off of an unconscious or conscious bias that had nothing to do with any real interaction with this particular patient. Man, that's crazy. And that's what I'm saying. We have to know how to advocate for ourselves. Let me take this 30-second commercial. We can come back. Lil Wayne's going to be back with us. But this is why we have to use our voices and our platforms. I love everything that I've been blessed with. I do. But the platform, and it has to go and grow so we need to fix some of this stuff. You know, I may not fix it all, but whatever I can touch in my neck of the woods, woo, I'm touching it. We'll be right back in about 30 seconds. All right, and we're back. This is Knowledge or Nonsense, guys. We are talking, now we're getting a little bit of everything, but we're talking with Naseema McElroy, and she's talking to us about learning how to advocating for yourself. I definitely want to ask one question. How do you recommend patients advocate for themselves? And just other things that are very present in the day-to-day and how we have to be able to navigate those things. So, Perkins, did you have a question before I go mine? Because you know I have like 27 of them.
I know. I was behind the stage just listening in, and Naseema, I used to always wonder. Some of the elders in my family, like my great aunt, she would never like to go to the hospital. No matter what happened, she wouldn't go, and I didn't understand until years later why. And what helped me peel back this why was I read this book called Medical Apartheid.
Yes.
Apartheid, I was like, wow. It was really, like you just stated, there was a national understanding in the healthcare community that Black women in particularly have a higher pain threshold than white women. And it was mind-boggling to me that some of that still persists today. You've seen it. Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. And, you know, actually my dad has a serious mistrust for Western medicine. So I actually grew up going to a herbalist in Chinese medicine, using Chinese medicine, because that mistrust is real, and it's not that far back, just like this is my dad's generation. But it's also why I'm in healthcare, because I just feel like we need people who are really going to advocate and have the knowledge behind the advocacy, right? So so for pregnant women, right? Anytime you go to a visit, anything, just because the rates are so high for Black women, like when I post about this stuff that happens to Black women, like people are literally telling me like they are in fear, and like they're totally like almost debilitatingly in fear of delivering because of all the horror stories they've heard or experienced.
Yeah.
And so number one, you gotta take a gangster with you. You have to take a gangster. And when I'm saying a gangster, I mean you can take an advocate, but your advocate has to know how to go hard for you and not stop. Because sometimes and know the processes and procedures in the medical terminology that make people step back and be like, hold on, they actually know what they're talking about, right? But you got to find a gangster, or you got to so a gangster is gonna be somebody like me, or a doula, or your friend that you know is educated. Like, but you got to have somebody with you. Number one, to corroborate your story, because they're gonna say that you're lying. Okay. Number two, that's going to call people out. So that, and hold people accountable. So that's what you have to do on the proactive side. Reactively, if something does happen, and at any point, first of all, let me tell you something. If you feel like something is wrong, you're not tripping.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think that, just with like anything, like racist encounters, anything like that, like sometimes you second guess it, like, nah, am I being overly sensitive? There's not a time to second guess. You're not tripping. It's racist, right? So know that and start acting, right? Be like, okay, this is how I feel. I wasn't heard, whatever, this happened, whatever. I need X, Y, and Z. Be very clear on what you need. And if you're not getting that, go up the chain of escalation, the chain of command, right? Escalate up the chain of command. So in a hospital, you're going to ask to speak to the charge nurse. If the charge nurse doesn't resolve your problem, you're going to ask to speak to the manager or director of the department, or even the house supervisor. If they can't help you resolve the problem, then you go into the C-suite and you ask for them. Sometimes there's ombudsmen that can kind of handle that, those kind of situations. But before they turn it on you and try to call social work and CPS and all that other kind of stuff, because that's what they do, you take those actions to make sure that you're heard. So that's the way that you advocate for yourself. But you have to be very clear on what your understanding is, and then tell them exactly what you would like to happen. And you don't stop until you get that action. And then you can get a lawyer involved at that point. But always come out of that experience with a follow-up that's written, and with the right people CC'd, with your lawyer CC'd, so that everybody knows it's not a game.
Listen.
And this is baseline, and this is a whole thing. Like, it sounds like a lot, like it's a hella extra, right?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's baseline.
But why? But it's like people are like, well, why should I have to do that? Because you do.
Yeah. Get off of the why should I have to do it and learn the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you, and no one should be undereducated, think that this is a women's issue. I'm a father of 4, and I recall. Now, of course, you recall every birth, but I recall our first birth child in particular. The nursing staff was intentionally trying to pursue the C-section route. You know, it was like, this is, and we saw this plain before our eyes. So
it's probably the doctor, actually, because doctors used to be like, well, I have to go at 5 o'clock, so I need y'all to get this ready. And so they push the nurses, because nurses really don't want to do a C-section. Believe me, we don't want to do C-section.
Point of correction. Not necessarily the nurses, but we were being pushed in that direction. And even for someone who understands some of the lingo, you still need an advocate if it's your first ordeal. So, folks, listen up. Listen up.
Yeah, because Perkins, you and your wife are in the medical field. We're in the medical field. You guys see, I put on there, check out Ion SPD. Definitely, she didn't even ask for that to be put there, but I put that because when we did the isms in the system, she did something on racism in healthcare, on the OBGYN instruments, and how the difference when she worked in like a impoverished community hospital and when she worked in like a upscale private hospital, they didn't even have the same amount of instruments for C-sections, because they were not, it was a C-section was an ultimate last result in the upscale one. But in this other impoverished community, they were doing C-sections all, like, it was commonplace. Right. And then on the back end of those C-sections, I didn't know this until this show and the research that went into us doing that show. Like, many of those women went on to have real issues like early hysterectomies, problems with scar tissue. They couldn't do stuff. Like, they can't have more. I was like, are they sterilizing? Like, it was.
I'll tell you a story. Yes, and when you said that sterilization, so I had a friend in medical school. He was telling me, and he went to medical school at Meharry. He said that there was a doctor he used to work with that would leave clamps on women's fallopian tubes when he did a C-section, which cut off the blood flow to the ovaries, which therefore was an informal tubal ligation, or a way of tying the people's tubes to sterilize them, just because he wanted to and just because he could get away with it. And so it does happen in those situations. And this is somebody that's a couple years older than me, so it's not that far out.
It's not that far. And we don't want to say the name of the facility. We can say the name of the school because the school didn't. We don't want to say name of the
Right.
doctor either. We want to, but we understand we live in a litigious society. So
Right.
we're just saying, know how to advocate for yourself and don't be afraid to use your voice. And you can be like, well, it shouldn't take all that. Okay, people shouldn't cheat on their spouses, but we know it happens. So let's
Right.
come up out of that. Let's move past what should be tree in the wind and rainbow living, and let's learn how to advocate. Because some things you have to use your own voice. You have to use your
Yeah.
own voice. You want to be uncomfortable now, or you want to be uncomfortable forever. And
Right.
so go ahead, Dwayne.
It's just amazing. It's interesting to me, right? So when a person comes to the hospital and they don't speak your language or English per se, they are instinctively going to call someone who speaks your language. And in fact, you may also get a language card that shows you all the people on the floor in the facility that speaks your language. Well, guess what? When a lay person comes to the facility, we also don't speak the language of healthcare. We also in times need a translator. So I think an advocate, that's a great takeaway, and I hope people understand what the message you're delivering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we want to thank you for your time. I know that I love it. You're somewhere right now, even in a conference, and you're like, no, let's have this conversation. I'm going to stay because you're passionate about people, not just the finances, but definitely it, because it does allow you to stand a little more strong and not have to make compromised or, heavily under duress decisions, but also on being an advocate for yourself in healthcare. Listen, you're not difficult. If you hurt, you hurt. You don't have to be like, well, I really don't hurt, or it ain't that bad. That's trauma speaking. That's second class citizenry speaking. No, ow, I have a splinter. I paid for this insurance. Can you get it? Like, I don't speak on
That
it.
part. Yes.
Speak on it. Speak on it. I hope you guys can hear the encouragement. And when you're somewhere uncomfortable, I hope you hear my voice saying, speak on it. Because if you don't speak up for you and for your loved ones, who will? Who will?
On your voice.
Yeah. Do your voice. Naseema, tell the people where they can find you. I know you have programs and courses. You want to tell us about how you came out of that and the net worth, or you want to just circle back and I can send them to your IG? Because I follow
just send them to my IG. It's all in my bio. But follow me at Financially Intentional. I post there daily. That's where I hang out. financiallyintentional.com is my website. You want to find out about any of my programs, they're all there. I'm relaunching my podcast next month, the Financially Intentional Podcast. So I'm out here sharing the knowledge just because, like I said, money is power and wealth is our birthright, but we have been gate-kept from it or don't think that we deserve, and everybody has the tools right where they're at to build wealth. So get started today.
All right. Thank you again so
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
Y'all know what to do. Share this video. Follow us on YouTube. We're on all platforms. Follow us at Knowledge or Nonsense. And if you want to connect with her and you haven't, or you just like, oh, what was that lady's name? Just find me on LinkedIn. Send me a private message. I'll get you all the information you need from her. But listen, let's use our voice and let's keep doing exactly what we're doing to increase visibility, to level playing fields, change playing fields, and be a help for people. All right.
Thank you very much. Go get it. Nice to meet you here. Thanks, Sharon.
Right. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.